The first time I met Karen, she clutched a clipboard like it was a loaded pistol and stared at my work boots as if I'd just tramped dirt across her pristine marble floors. "You can't just build whatever you want out here, sir," she said, her eyes narrowing into slits. "I'm Jake Harlan," I replied, not bothering with a handshake. "That cabin's on my land." She didn't flinch. "This is Cedar Ridge Estates. We have standards, guidelines, aesthetic cohesion." She actually air-quoted cabin and sneered. "Yours looks like a deer blind." "It's a log cabin," I said, steady but firm. "Built to code, fully permitted, on private property my family's owned since the 50s. I just restored it." Karen's lips pursed like she'd bitten into a grapefruit. "I'm president of the HOA, and we weren't consulted. You'll be hearing from us." I already had. 2 weeks earlier, the first of what would become a flood of violation notices arrived. Unapproved structure, non-compliant materials, unauthorized exterior color. The absurdity? My cabin sat on a secluded 2 acres outside the main development. The HOA had no jurisdiction, but that didn't stop them. I figured it was just noise until I left town for 3 days to visit my sister in Boulder. When I returned, the cabin was gone. Nothing left but a scraped patch of earth and a few splintered boards. I stood there, stunned, for a solid 10 minutes before driving to the sheriff's office. Deputy Tom blinked at me like I'd reported a UFO landing. "You're saying someone demolished your entire cabin?" "Yeah," I said, "and I've got a hunch who." The next morning, I crashed the HOA meeting. Karen presided at the head of the clubhouse table, sipping from a mug emblazoned with Queen Bee. Her auburn pixie cut was immaculate, her smile so fake it could have starred in a toothpaste ad. Well, she said, spotting me. "Look who's gracing us with his presence." "You tore down my cabin." Gasps rippled through the room. A few board members squirmed. Karen didn't blink. "We removed an illegal structure." I stepped forward and slapped a folder onto the table. That illegal structure was fully permitted, county stamped, surveyed, and zoned. "You had no authority." She flicked her eyes at the papers, unimpressed. "We sent warnings." "You sent harassment," I shot back. "You broke onto private property and committed felony destruction." She rolled her eyes. "Let's not be dramatic." "I'm not," I said. "The sheriff's on it, and the county clerk's already been notified. My name's on every legal document tied to that land." Karen faltered, just for a second. "What?" I leaned in. "I work for the county recorder's office. I process property records for a living. Every permit, deed, and plat map in this area, I've signed off on them." "You picked the wrong guy." Her eyes darted to the folder, but her voice held steady. "You can't expect us to track every parcel around the development. Mistakes happen." "You didn't make a mistake," I said. "You hired a demolition crew, bypassed a locked gate, and bulldozed a permitted structure without a court order. That's criminal trespass and destruction of property." The room went quiet. Even the guy with the Bluetooth earpiece and golf course stopped fiddling with his phone. Karen sank back in her chair, looking like she wanted to vanish. A man at the table's far end, Paul, cleared his throat. "Is it true you didn't consult the board before ordering that demolition?" "Don't be absurd," Karen snapped. "We discussed it in closed session." "That was about mailbox violations," Paul said. "Not this." Karen's jaw clenched. "I acted in the association's best interest." "You acted without a vote," another board member piped up, "and without verifying the property lines." I didn't wait for their squabble to escalate. I walked out, already dialing my attorney. By the next morning, Deputy Tom was back on my driveway, this time with a county DA investigator named Lisa. I handed over my documentation, permits, surveys, historical plat maps, and a certified letter I'd sent the HOA 6 months earlier, stating my land was outside their reach. Lisa skimmed the files with a professional eye. "You weren't kidding about working in records. This is airtight." "I knew they'd try something," I said. "Didn't think they'd go this far." She nodded. "If they hired that crew directly, without a court order or legal claim to the land, it's not just trespassing. It's conspiracy." Tom glanced over. "We talked to the contractor. Says Karen signed the work order herself, claimed it was HOA common land and the structure was a hazard." Lisa raised an eyebrow. "Did he check the tax parcel?" "Didn't even check the address," Tom said. That afternoon, I drove to the contractor's office, a low brick building with a weathered sign, Peak Pulse Demo and Grading. The owner, A burly guy in his 50s named Mike. Looked like he'd been expecting me. "Look," he said before I could speak. "I didn't know it was yours." Karen told us it was HOA property. Gave us a site map with a Cedar Ridge estate seal. I slapped the real survey on his desk. That cabin sat 120 feet outside HOA territory. You demolished a private residence. That's a felony. Mike rubbed his face. I'll cooperate with the investigation. Got the work order, emails, everything. I'll turn it over. You'd better, I said. The DA's already building a case. 3 days later, Karen was served a subpoena. Lisa called to update me. The grand jury was opening a file. We're looking at charges for unlawful entry, destruction of property, and falsifying documents, she said. We're also reviewing her role as HOA president. If she used forged materials to authorize that demolition, it opens up more charges. Meanwhile, I filed a civil suit. My attorney, a sharp, methodical guy named Ethan, filed for punitive damages, restitution, and injunctive relief, plus a restraining order barring the HOA from my land. 2 weeks later, Karen resigned. No speech, just a typed note taped to the clubhouse doors citing personal reasons. But the truth leaked fast. Once the board saw the demolition order complete with a forged site map and her lone signature, they panicked. Paul called me. "Jake, on behalf of the board, I'm sorry. Not interested in apologies." I cut him off. "I want this fixed." He hesitated. "How?" "Cooperate with the investigation. Then hold a public meeting and tell the community what happened. No spin, just facts." To my surprise, they did. The clubhouse was packed that night. Residents from every corner of Cedar Ridge Estates showed up, some curious, others furious. Karen didn't attend, but the board sat in a row like kids in detention. Paul stood at the podium, reading a statement admitting Karen acted alone, acknowledging my cabin was legal and outside HOA jurisdiction, and apologizing for their lack of oversight. He vowed to support the investigation. Hands shot up. Are we liable for her actions? What about our dues if we're sued? Can the HOA even function if it doesn't know its own boundaries? I stood in the back, silent, watching the unraveling. That night, Ethan called. DAs filed charges: criminal mischief, trespass, forgery, and abuse of authority. They're also subpoenaing HOA financials. Why the financials? Karen used association funds to pay the demo crew. That's misappropriation. If she faked a vote to release the money, it's embezzlement. By month's end, Karen was indicted. Her mugshot hit the local paper under the headline, "HOA President Charged in Illegal Demolition Scheme." Mike, the contractor, got immunity for cooperating, handing over every document, email, and invoice. Turns out, Karen had also tried to cite a neighboring property for unapproved landscaping, despite it being outside HOA limits. Her need for control had finally tripped her up. The board held emergency elections. 3 members resigned, 2 were voted out. The new president, a reserved woman named Susan who'd been a city planner, started with a full audit of HOA activity for the past 5 years. I rebuilt the cabin stronger, with a deeper foundation, reinforced beams, and a wraparound porch. No permission needed. This time, I installed cameras, motion-activated, night vision, cloud storage, covering every inch of my property. Trust is earned, and Cedar Ridge Estates had a long way to go. A month after the indictment, the county courthouse buzzed for Karen's arraignment. I didn't go. Ethan was there, watching from the second row while her lawyer's motion to dismiss was shot down mid-sentence. But the real storm was inside Cedar Ridge. With Karen gone and the board in upheaval, the neighborhood teetered between reform and collapse. Susan moved fast, reviewing every enforcement action from Karen's tenure: citations, fines, architectural denials, even rules on mailbox height and deck stain colors. One Thursday morning, as I finished the porch railing, a woman in a county-sealed windbreaker knocked. "Mr. Harlan?" "Investigator Monroe, Public Integrity Bureau. Can I ask you some questions?" She didn't sit, just pulled out a recorder. Embezzling. She routed duplicate invoices through a fake landscaping company registered to her brother-in-law. No one noticed. She kept amounts below reporting thresholds and spread them across budget lines. You're the complainant in the demolition case. We found emails where Karen called you a problem resident and threat to order. That shows intent. I pointed to my kitchen table. I've got every letter she sent, emails, and photos from before and after the demo. Can you scan them? We're building a timeline. They're building a case, he said. I wanted to thank you, he said. Karen blocked my solar panel installation for 3 years. I nodded. Sounds like her. She threatened fines for a satellite dish I put up. You joining the class action? I blinked. Class action. Ethan's organizing it. Anyone hit with financial loss or property meddling under Karen's reign can sign on. Raj's posture eased. Then I'm in. She cost me thousands, and I've got every denial letter saved. Word spread. By week's end, Ethan had over 40 residents signed up. Some had been fined for eco-friendly landscaping. One guy, a firefighter, faced lien threats over a $90 dues payment missed while he was on wildfire duty. Ethan brought in a second lawyer to handle the volume. The goal wasn't just compensation, it was dismantling the system that let Karen run wild. With the DA eyeing conspiracy charges, we had leverage. The HOA's insurance carrier panicked. Blindsided by the demolition claim, they now faced massive liability. They sent a risk attorney to negotiate a private settlement. Ethan and I met her in a downtown office. She tried to soft pitch. Mr. Harlan, litigation is costly and draining. Wouldn't a quiet resolution be better? Ethan didn't blink. You demolished a permitted residence with no authority, using HOA funds under an indicted president. Quiet's not an option. She sighed. What are your terms? Ethan slid over a document. Full reconstruction costs, double damages, HOA policy overhaul with independent oversight, and a public admission of fault. She balked. Public? That could tank property values. So could fraud, conspiracy, and illegal demolition, Ethan said. 2 days later, the HOA signed. The insurer cut a check, and every resident got a mailed statement owning the mistake. A week after, Susan held a town hall. The clubhouse overflowed, but the mood had shifted from anger to purpose. Residents formed committees to revise bylaws, scheduled elections for open seats, and for the first time since the rebuild, someone from the HOA stepped onto my land to apologize. Susan stood at my porch steps, hands clasped. We've got work to do, but it starts with accountability. I nodded. You're on the right path. The final blow landed 3 weeks later. Karen's trial date was set, and the DA added witness tampering to her charges. She'd texted 2 ex-board members, pushing them to back her demolition story. They handed over the messages. Her lawyer scrambled for a plea deal. The DA offered one: full restitution, a public confession, and a lifetime ban from any HOA or public board in the state. She took it. The confession ran in a county press release, and word spread like wildfire. For months, Cedar Ridge realtors had to reassure buyers the HOA was reformed. Karen's name became a warning. As for me, I sat on my new porch with coffee, watching mist drift through the pines, no longer checking for surveyors or drones. The cabin stood tougher than ever, its boundaries legal and otherwise crystal clear. Justice wasn't cheap, but it arrived with receipts, court orders, and a community that finally learned to check its own lines. Karen? She's reading property maps from a much smaller house now, without a clipboard. The last scaffolding came down the morning the Public Integrity Bureau called. It wasn't just Monroe this time. Assistant DA Claire Voss was on the line, her tone brisk. We're widening the investigation. It's not just Karen. I set down my wrench. You found someone else? Evidence of collusion between Karen and a former zoning officer, Greg Tatum. He greenlit forged boundary docs to justify the demolition. The name rang a faint bell. I'd seen his signature on old permits. He's involved. We're issuing a warrant, Claire said. The forged map Karen used had Tatum's approval stamp, backdated 6 months. My stomach twisted. So she had an inside man faking jurisdiction. Exactly. We're building a corruption case, falsifying records, fraud, conspiracy to commit unlawful demolition. It's going to rattle some cages. It did. By the next week, Tatum was arrested. The news hit hard, and the Public Integrity Bureau held a press conference on the courthouse steps. I watched from my kitchen, screwing in cabinet hinges. Claire stood at the podium, flanked by officials. These charges reflect a breach of public trust, she said. No one is above the law. In Cedar Ridge, the fallout was swift. Susan called an emergency meeting in the community park, not the clubhouse. Residents hauled lawn chairs and coffee mugs, the air thick with resolve. Susan held a report, her voice steady. Karen's actions weren't solo. She worked with outsiders to fake property lines, misdirect funds, and authorize demolitions under false pretenses. Raj Patel, near the front, asked, "How many properties got hit?" 5, Susan said. 2 faced fake violations, 1 owner was pressured to sell under fine threats, and Jake's cabin was destroyed. I stayed in the back, arms crossed, as the crowd digested the scope. A new board member, Ellen, stepped up. "We also found an unauthorized dues hike last year. The money went to a reserve account Karen controlled, never reported." A woman in the crowd muttered, "She robbed us blind." Susan didn't soften it. She did. "We're working with the DA to recover every penny." The HOA launched a restitution program. Homeowners with fraudulent fines were repaid, denied improvements were fast-tracked, and the board voted for annual external audits. Ethan pushed the civil case, now bolstered by Tatum's role, which opened doors for racketeering claims. We added the county as a co-defendant for oversight failures. They settled quietly, covering reconstruction, legal fees, redesign costs, lost time, and property value dips. By winter, the cabin's new roof was sealed, the wood stove hummed, and the porch became my reading spot. The real closure came 2 months later with a county-sealed letter. Karen's plea deal was final: 18 months in prison, restitution, a public apology in the paper, and a lifetime ban from fiduciary roles. Tatum faced trial, convicted in under 4 hours, 5 years for falsifying records, 2 more for conspiracy. He lost his pension and license. Cedar Ridge's HOA transformed. Susan and the new board rewrote bylaws, mandating transparency, public votes for enforcement, and a resident-led review panel. One spring evening, Susan dropped by with a folder. "We're renaming the community park," she said. "Time for a name that fits the new era." I raised an eyebrow. "What's it called?" She handed me a resolution: Harlan Crest Park. I blinked. "You didn't need to." "We did," she said. "You stood up when no one else would. You held us accountable." I looked past her to the pines swaying in the dusk, cabin lights warm behind us. For the first time in over a year, I felt no weight. "Appreciate it," I said. "But make sure the next guy building out here doesn't have to fight for what's his." Susan smiled, genuine, not Karen's polished veneer. "We're on it." She left the folder, and I watched her head down the gravel path. That night, I filed the resolution next to the original deed, signed by my dad in 1958. The cabin had fallen and risen, now standing as more than wood and nails, a boundary no clipboard, forged map, or power-hungry president would ever cross again.